Good afternoon and welcome to our last meeting of the month. It is hard to believe in the month. We have an invocation tonight by Councilman Tommy Stewart and the respective flags by Councilman Beatrice Thompson. Please rise.
Before we pray, I'd like to just ask that we take a moment of silence, bow our heads, and memory of Councilwoman Beatrice Floyd, who has recently passed away. Had the pleasure of working with Ms. Floyd over the last 20 years. She worked very diligently, and especially in the council districts 3, 4, and 5. So just ask that we bow our heads in a moment of silence. Gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight asking you that you continue to bless this city and this country that we live in. I bring to you divisive politics, civil disputes, and social problems that keep us fighting each other, that you may unite even those who resist unification, that you may bring people together and transform local communities, and that you may change people's hearts so that they will look out for their fellow neighbor. Finally, I ask that you give this body of government the continued wisdom to lead well, to make the right decisions that will continue to promote flourishing in this community and to secure peaceful, harmonious lives for the city, for the citizens of this city. All these things we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our minutes of January 11th have been distributed. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes?
Make motion that we accept the minutes.
First by Mr. Stewart, second by Dr. Thompson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes of January 11 pass unanimously. We have a couple items of old business, and the first item is request second reading of Ordinance 21-03, requiring individuals to wear face coverings in retail and food service establishments and matters related thereto. Mr. McHugh.
Mayor and Council, thank you. This is the continuation of the face covering orders that we have in place, listed under state of emergency or emergency ordinance. However, due to state regulations, we have to adopt a regular ordinance as we extended the other ordinance to its limits as far as what's allowed by state law. So this is on second reading, an extension of that face covering ordinance that's already in effect now. So based upon an increase in the number of COVID-19 cases here recently, to continue threat of the virus, it's our recommendation to continue with the requirements of the face coverings in places open to the public and for an additional period of time to enact this ordinance. And again, like I said, it's on second reading. It will expire automatically on the 61st day following the enactment, which is March the 27th from today. And we can also extend it by council's resolution. So before that expires, and we hear from emergency management, get an update, and see where things are, council can certainly take consideration to let it expire or to extend it, and do that so by resolution, and not having to do 2 readings of the ordinance. So again, it's our recommendation to move forward with this on second reading.
Thank you, sir. We talked about it and had some good questions at our last meeting. Any further comments or questions? Mr. Roberts?
This is a question for either Mr. McEwen or City Attorney McLean. Just a point of clarification for me. How does this apply to public gatherings? Let's say there's a large outdoor event of any nature. That's the first one. And secondly, I know this is for public access and so on, but it does not apply in any way to private residences, either indoor or outdoors.
It's an outdoor event. This ordinance doesn't
specifically apply to outdoor events, it applies to indoor places where people, public are invited to meet for whatever reason. The governor is directed to take care of the outdoor functions.
Such
That
as
comes from
Certain restrictions on outdoor.
football games, baseball games, attendance,
all right, and then as far as your private residence, whether it's indoors or outdoors. So let's say you have a wedding event in your yard. How does it apply in any way?
It's in your yard, but it would not.
If it's indoors?
It's in a private house, I'd have to put, but the governor would apply to that. If it's more than, so if they say gathering a certain number of people, it would be in violation of the government.
And then in addition, not your private residence, but an event center would be considered under the retail component of this, so it would apply. And we've had that situation occur.
At an event center?
Yes, sir.
With a private gathering, whether it's inside your home or in your yard?
Well, at a retail event center, at a commercial retail event center, not a private residence.
Okay.
I don't think it's right.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Good, any other questions? Ms. Stewart?
So just to follow up on what Councilman Roberts just asked, if you're having a large barbecue at your house and there's 50 people gathered outside your yard, that's in violation of the governor's rule, is that correct?
The governor's rule still states that during a state of emergency and the public safety officials, in this case our law enforcement, fire departments, public safety departments, can deem a certain situation unsafe as far as the number of people, the interaction, and so forth. So that's still within the governor's office, the governor's orders that are still outstanding.
And do we know how long that may be extended, or do we have any idea?
And don't know, at this point, they're still operating under state of emergency, so I would expect it to continue as long as state of emergency continues.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve this on second reading.
First on Mr. Harvin. Second by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? That ordinance passes unanimously on the second and final reading. Our last item of old business is to request second reading of ordinance 21-04 to amend section 62-16 of the city code, adding provisions for the prohibition of loitering. Mr. McEwen.
In section 6216, we already have a section on loitering as for specific purposes. However, what we would like to do on second reading here in your consideration is amend it to add additional places that would be prohibited in certain circumstances that are prohibited in regards to the definitions of loitering. And that's what we do in this ordinance. And so through the ordinance, the new section is actually within 6216 is under number 2, loitering in general, and then it goes into public places and what it means as far as that, the considerations of that, and then also it provides specific definitions that apply to the certain public places, such as public restrooms, buses and transit facilities, certain buildings and restaurants, commercial establishments. And what this does is it's a tool for us. We come across many issues that businesses ask us to look into or to respond to, for the police to respond to, and it provides a better criteria for them to evaluate the loitering and be able to ask somebody to leave either on the business's behalf or within a public place that's hindering the general public from using that facility. A good example of that is a bus shelter, where somebody is, for a prolonged period of time, staying in a bus shelter and prohibiting the transit riders to use that facility to get out the weather elements. That would be considered loitering, and it would allow the police to ask them and give them the opportunity to leave. And so we recommend this again as an amendment on second reading.
Thanks, sir. Any questions, any comments?
I'd like to make a motion, we approve this in second reading.
First by Mr. John Roberts, second by Mr. Don Chapman. Any further discussion?
I just have one quick question.
Yes, sir.
When will this go in to be law?
It goes in effect upon signatures tonight.
And do we have a game plan on, how to relocate these folks?
Yeah, believe it or not, this is something the police and law enforcement deals with every day. And so even without this law, I mean, we ask people to leave on behalf of businesses or other places that ask us to respond to that certain situation. However, this gives the backbone authority for the law enforcement to act lawfully to ask them to leave, and if they don't leave, it's a violation and so forth. And that's what we didn't have before. Sometimes, there would be other violations that could occur, but this allows that to move forward. So it's something we're already doing in effect, because we're having to respond to these calls, but it lawfully provides for a police officer to take additional action to ask somebody to leave.
Sounds good, thank you.
Good. Anything else? We have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously on the second and final reading. We have two items of new business. The first item is request consideration of referral to the Planning Commission of petition to amend the City of Anderson zoning ordinance relating to residential building foundations. Mr. McEwen.
This is a referral for council's consideration to send to the Planning Commission as the first step for their hearing, and Maurice McKenzie, our Planning Development Director, will introduce the background of this information. Mr. McKenzie.
Thank you. Yes, based on the city's desire to improve aesthetics with new single-family residential construction, we are proposing to add language to the zoning ordinance which will require all new single-family dwellings to be built with a finished floor elevation, a minimum of 12 inches above adjacent grade. Essentially, no slab-on-grade type houses, and by building it up, this will add to the overall aesthetics. And this is language that you are familiar with. Over the last month, when we annexed 139 acres, this language was added by you into the accompanying PDE document for that annexation. So we are looking to require this citywide for consistency purposes. Again, this is for new single-family construction. And because this is an amendment to the zoning ordinance, this does require it to go through the process with the Planning Commission first, and they meet on February 2nd. So we recommend that you refer this to the Planning Commission for their February 2nd meeting.
Thank you, sir. I know to come back to us, but any initial comments? Ms. Stewart?
Mr. McKenzie, does this apply for all single family, or is this in the PDD district? And the only reason I'm asking is because, like in the area where Councilman Roberts or Dr. Thompson and I serve, Habitat for Humanity come to a lot of our neighborhoods, want to build houses. Of course, they build a slab on grade with the vinyl side right on the ground. So I would like to bring those standards up in our neighborhoods as well, not just in the more immersed in PDD areas, and just want to make sure that's across the board, whether it's a donated lot that the city may donate or a developer comes in and buys a lot.
Yes, we're proposing this to be citywide, whether it's in a PDD, a subdivision, or an infill lot like you're talking about.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Roberts?
I would also like to comment that I view this more as a best practices issue. Currently, the building code doesn't allow for it to be any more than 4 inches above grade, which you don't have to know much about buildings, but that's really not enough. So I think the most important thing here is the drainage issue, in my opinion. It will help eliminate a lot of just poorly graded lots or minimally graded lots. And I hope that we can push this out not only to the county, but also maybe some other municipalities and counties around the state that take notice of this. So with that, I'd like to move that we refer this to the planning commission.
First by Mr. Roberts, second by Mr. Chapman. Mayor Pro Tem.
I would like to say one thing. I would like to thank Mr. Chapman and Councilman Roberts for both bringing this up. This is something that can be damaging to houses as well. And it's a great idea. It's one of the things that I think we need. So I'm here for it.
Thank you. Anything else, guys? First and second, all those in favor say aye. And it passes to the planning commission. Thank you, Mr. McKenzie. Our last item is request consideration of purchase of HVAC monitoring system for city facilities. Mr. Stewart.
Dana Ludden, our Director of Facilities and Grounds, is going to introduce the background of this information for you. He's identified a need for city facilities and a way to fund those, what's requested tonight. Mr. Ludden.
Good evening. So, what we have existing for City Hall and the Municipal Business Center is a Johnson Controls monitoring system. Since they've installed this system 12 years ago, almost 13 now, when the Municipal Business Center was built, the system's never really worked correctly. It's had issues with being able for the maintenance staff to actually access the units remotely so they can see what's going on with the set points and parameters that the HVAC companies set when they're installed. And there's also been issues with the point of use thermostats. It's those small little boxes that you see in random buildings that I've always thought they were a placebo effect, but they've never worked on any building I've ever done. So in order for us to have access to these units, make them run efficiently and how they're supposed to, since they were just installed with the renovation, we'd like to switch to a train system. The train system is remote monitored, accessed via Mozilla Firefox, Google Chrome, and will work with the units that we have. The majority of our units are actually Train or American Standard, which is made by Train, and they're just plug and play systems, connect to the internet, and we can access them from anywhere and make sure that everything's running correctly. As far as how we're going to pay for this, the contract budget for the City Hall and Municipal Business Center restoration stipulated that 65% of all the savings go back to the owner, and we came in with $117,770 for that 65%. The other 35% went to the GC. For City Hall, the Federal Prison, and the Municipal Business Center, we come in at $117,180, which is just under $600 lower than that. So it will be covered in the original approved budget for the Municipal Business Center City Hall job. This will save us money in the long term because we won't have to call Johnson Controls to come out and fix something. We'll have access to a technical rep that we can call and fix ourselves, or they can just remote into the system from where they are and see if there's anything that needs to be done on our end to fix it. And maintenance staff can do that, as well as any HVAC tech that we have come on site. We can give them temporary access to the system, let them look at it and see what needs to be changed or worked on in order to get the system back up and running. Are there any questions?
Thank you, sir. Questions, comments, Mr. Stewart?
Just curious, I know at some point in time, are we going to be able to service these units ourselves? Are we going to have the capacity to do that? And that way, if something does arise in the future, that we've got the in-house personnel with that person or persons that can do electrical, HVAC, plumbing. That way we can cut down on some of the costs of having to bring people in.
Yes, so included in the base contract is for the whole first year, we can call them at any time. They'll come down, show us how to do it, and they also include 2 trips without any issues where they'll come down and do additional training, including after the install. So that's really 3 trips of training for the installer, the trained installer, to teach our guys how to use their system. They're not going to be making any changes with the HVAC units themselves. They're more of a control / basically your thermostat and point of use controls. And they're going to teach us what our guys need to know in order to work on those. What's not a charge at any time is the possibility to call them, and they have a remote service rep who can tell us and walk us through getting the units repaired. And that includes if we need to change unit for any reason, they will talk us through changing that out and being good to go with the startup of the new unit.
And I'll add to that, Mr. Stewart, as well, is that we do have, in Daniel's department, somebody on staff that does have technical expertise and has been doing it for some time, is able to switch out compressors, fans, and so forth. And when we had to order units, that was a big issue. I mean, it was almost constant, nonstop during the summer of doing that. Switch out compressors, fans, it seems like kind of that's all they did. Now we got newer equipment, but they're able to check fans, check compressors, make sure everything's running right, and then also to do that, do a physical inspection of it, but also be able to electronically view it. So we do have the capability in-house, but as you know, we plan on expanding the facilities and grounds department and certainly add expertise to it.
Well, I appreciate, the steps that we're taking forward in doing that, because I know for a while, not only myself, but other fellow council members talked about maintaining what we've got and be able to, as we build, to be able to maintain and monitor and upkeep. So this is a step in the right direction. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this.
First by Mr. Stewart. Second by Mayor Pro Tem.
Two questions. One, how much does a call from Johnson & Johnson cost?
So Johnson Controls, whenever we call them, I think their base cost just for them to come down from Greenville is $1,500, and then they charge time on top of that. The example that I gave is we've got a unit on top of the municipal building that we called them to come down and replace. It wasn't communicating with the system. What they did is came down, took out the part that was needed so that the system was up and running, and then charged us for $2,500. We still haven't had access to that unit. So they sent us a bill to take a part away, and just in order to get the system to run without us being able to actually control it.
Gotcha.
Interesting. Mr. Chapman.
I've got one other question.
Okay.
Is there a service fee each year?
Yes, sir. So the first year is included. After the first year, they'll offer us a $5,000 a year service agreement where we can call for on-site work as needed. But again, after that first year, those should be limited due to them giving us those 3 training times, as well as us being able to call and work on those as needed ourselves.
So that's the reason why they call it Johnson Controls. Is this system, the American Center and Trend System, that the Nexius system? Or
No, it's
something similar to it?
It's similar. It's called Tracer SC Plus, and it's a web-based system as far as our point of access.
Okay. Does that system allow you to look at histories of daily use so that you can monitor each location to see year to year if we're performing better than years before?
Yes, sir. We'll actually also be able to schedule those units down to the minute if we wanted to, in order to get one particular area of the downstairs of City Hall to run for 30 minutes longer than the area next door. So we could start, for example, council chambers, we could start that up, an hour before a council meeting, so that when the room is full, that load isn't going to bog down the system and wear it out prematurely.
Excellent. So that'll end up saving money in the long run.
Yeah, so between the actual new equipment being, more efficient, as energy efficient as it can be as far as new technology there, and then the control system of our staff actually monitoring it to maximize the savings there. We should see significant savings in our electric bill.
Right. And then the last one is, you note the federal prison separately. Do you also have this city jail included in this?
They quoted the city jail, but that would have been an additional cost, and there's only 4 units up there that we've got on their own thermostats, and they're getting pretty old, so we didn't want to. There's only 1 new unit up there. The other 3 package units that feed the city jail are going to need to be replaced within the next 5 to 10 years. We didn't want to put those on there for that cost at this time.
Okay, so other than those 4, the entire city hall will be up and running on this new system?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Is the rec center included in that system as well?
The rec center is not. Hopefully, when this building needs some work done on it, we will go ahead and include that in our project budget at that time, since these units are as old as the rec center, they're gonna need replaced at the same time that the rec center gets work done on it.
And even the expansion.
Right, and as you know, that's a planned capital project, it's a very near term, to work on this building itself.
Very good, good information. We have a first and a second, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Thank you, Mr. London. Our next item is executive session, and, section 30-4-70A2, which is the discussion of negotiations incident to proposed contractual arrangements. Mr. McCune, you got anything, or are we just going directly to executive session?
Yeah, at this time, for information purposes, there's no action requested from council tonight on this subject matter.
Thank you, sir. I entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Have a first by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Mr. Newton. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? We stand in executive session. We'll go across the hall. Come out of executive session. First by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Dr. Thompson. All those in favor say aye. We stand out of executive session. In executive session, we heard the city manager and attorney give a briefing on the executive session item in regards to a contract arrangement. At this time, there will be no action on this particular item, and we hope to get some more research and come back at some point in time. I entertain a motion to adjourn. First by Mr. Newton, second by Mr. Harmon. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.